Hello everybody and welcome to Duchess Royale, where I share my opinions and receipts on all things really interesting, but with a focus on major talking points. Some housekeeping first though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel and also hit that notification bell so that you know when the next video is out. So let's just dive in. 1st of April, April Fool's reception. Now, April Fool's Day seems like the apt day for King Charles's side piece, concubine turned Temu queen, to host a reception at Clarence House in order to mark the 21st birthday of a domestic abuse organisation called Safer Lives. Camilla Parker Bowles, being the, in quotes, advocate for supporting survivors of domestic abuse, is actually quite laughable. You see, I distinctly remember when Camilla lunched and dined with her two mates, Piers Morgan, who is a dedicated Meghan troll, and also Jeremy Clarkson, who has written in his Sun column on a regular basis, including on an occasion when he wrote about fantasizing about Meghan being paraded naked through the streets and having excrement thrown at her. Now, I mentioned this in the last roundup, actually, and I also said there that there were 25,000 people that complained about the article to IPSO, which is the useless UK press regulator. Now, Camilla, the domestic abuse advocate, well, she stayed silent. And all of this happened before Prince Harry had released his memoir, Spare. And on his book tour, Anderson Cooper asked Harry,
"Has there been any response from the palace?"
No, and that comes a point when silence is betrayal.
I wouldn't even call this betrayal. I would call it complicity. And actually, Piers Morgan once said that a member of the royal family thanked him for standing up for them.
Have you heard from anyone in the palace thanking you for the, serious defense of them?
I've had some messages communicated to me on behalf of several members of the royal family.
Upper level
people? We're very grateful that... Well, I'm not going to go into who it was, but what I would say is gratitude that somebody was standing up for them.
Now, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that this royal was Camilla. All I'm saying is that friends of Camilla enjoy dining with her and they feel comfortable saying the most heinous things about Meghan, another member of the royal family. So I believe that they knew they had the green light from her to do the worst and to drag Meghan. They basically had Camilla's blessing. But what was interesting about this reception was Denise Welch. Now, she is a Loose Woman panellist and she was invited to this event. She's always been a staunch Meghan and Harry defender and she's voiced that on the panel.
I've supported them since day one. I've been aware from very early on, and I've said it on this show, of the different narrative towards Kate and the different narrative applied to Meghan from quite early on.
We're not saying
Why
that
shouldn't Harry
families...
say his piece, Jane?
Because...
I think he's had to move away from a family that has given... They've done it behind his back.
He's using it to make money.
You talk to me about interrupting.
He's making money from it.
That they have been leaking stories, and we know they have. And as soon as Harry and Meghan, soon as Meghan was seen as the people's princess, that was game over because William and Kate have to remain in those positions.
So, as you can see, she would often fight with these coven of Karens to support Harry and Meghan, and she's never really spoken highly of the other members of the royal family. She even once called Camilla the side piece. Yet off she pops to schmooze with the said side piece at the reception. Now, extending the reception invite to Denise feels very much like a bid to win her over and to turn her into a supporter. This support would most likely be expressed on Denise's platform of Loose Women to a high number of viewers. Now, this was Denise a few years back talking about Camilla.
Particularly a Camilla fan. I think that we just...
Ooh, for what reason?
I just think that, and I'm not moralising, I've had a past, but the fact is that I just think that she was there from the beginning of his marriage to Diana, and I think it's disrespectful to, certainly to Prince Harry and William. I just do. I can't get over that she was the side piece.
So we kind of know what camp you're in.
Now, check her out after the reception.
But she was a great sport. She was lovely.
Yes, she was really, really
It
nice.
was for Safe Lives and many domestic abuse charities. And of course, we've got the Facing It Together campaign. She was very informed. She's passionate about the subject, isn't she?
So Denise has a history of campaigning for domestic abuse charities. So that's why she would have been interested to go to this event. But as I've always said, nothing is a coincidence with the royals. It's all part of the plan. So here on this April Fool's Day, Denise was well and truly played. 2nd of April, As Ever launches.
Okay, come on. We're live! Oh my gosh. Yeah! Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We're live.
Now, the long-awaited launch of Meghan's business in partnership with Netflix dropped on the 2nd of April. Her collection comprised of 9 products, including herbal teas, jams, and, of course, flower sprinkles. Now, if you want to understand Meghan's undeniable reach and the power of her platform, then just note that her products sold out within 45 minutes of being launched.
Now check that.
And that was a great start to help you understand. Now, this was an extremely successful launch of a business, and later on in the month, when Meghan attends the Times 100 panel in New York, she alludes to underestimating just how fast her products would sell.
We had a feeling that it would have some buzz surrounding it. 45 minutes was not something I could have anticipated. I'm super grateful for the support. Yes,
So, of course, you guessed it. The British media were crashing out about her success, especially as they had already tried to claim pre-launch that Meghan wouldn't sell. So, when undoubtedly she did, they had to come up with all sorts of suggestions to imply that it had not really been a successful launch. So, for example, at one point, they claimed it was her friends who had brought up the stock, like this headline here, which says, "Who really bought Meghan's sold-out jams? Fans raise questions as it's revealed her famous pals snapped up stock while Kris Jenner got a freebie." And of course, they're not talking about her fans, they're talking about derangers that work together with the media to come up with these silly ideas. So they then claimed that the success was attributed to a clever marketing ploy. So this was where they said, within an hour of the products being sold out, by the way, which I have to say that was being spoken about a lot on social media, with people talking about how they had been in the queue and they hadn't got the products that they wanted. Well, apparently a source close to Meghan and her production team revealed to them that Meghan had deliberately made a small amount of products available so that they would sell out quickly, and that then she could then claim how popular her business is.
The hospital called. Your test results came back positive. You're a stage 5 dumbass.
And it seems that they now have this innate need to come up with theories in order to make themselves feel better about her success. Let's just be clear. Meghan is starting a business that has investment from Netflix. Netflix are not interested in making something look successful. They want it to be successful. If they're pouring in their cold hard cash into it, and again,
show me the money.
After this launch, they are again doing the Aaron Pierre walk all the way to the bank. Now, throughout the month of April, the Twitter timeline was flooded with people showing that they had received their orders. Also, celebrities and friends of Meghan were showcasing the lovely gift boxes that they had received with lots of her range in it. There was Kris Jenner, Zoe Saldana, Kerry Washington, the usual suspects like Serena Williams, Mindy Kaling, Tracy Robbins, but also lifestyle influencers like Akilah Robinson and Olivia McDowell. So that was really nice to see. Aside from the beautiful aesthetics, did the products taste as good as they looked? Well, Well, the British media were out again to try and claim that they didn't taste as good as they looked. And Inside Edition, being really messy, because of course they hold Meghan to this different kind of standard from everyone else, well, they did a taste test with, drumroll, Daily Mail US staff, and compared the King's jam to Meghan's jam. Seriously. Surprisingly, of course, the writers who spend every day of their waking lives writing and talking negatively on Meghan didn't think very highly of her jam. Now, what was interesting, though, in contrast, was that the Times and the Washington Post did a blind test of Meghan's jams against other jams. And surprise, surprise, on that occasion, Meghan's jam did come out top.
Don't like the texture. Doesn't taste like nothing at all. I think this one is my favorite.
I think this is my favorite. This one I feel like I'm nosing around in Montecito. Yeah, in a raspberry bush.
I quite like that one. I think that one's my favorite. That jam is very nice. I really like jam number 3.
I think Meghan's is this one.
I think number 3 is Meghan's.
I reckon this is the Duchess jam.
I think Meghan Markle's jam is jam number 3.
Also, her cookie mix was tested as well.
Meghan Markle's brand sold out in less than an hour, but we got our hands on a few of the cookies. I'm here at the Bon Appetit Test Kitchen to try them out and see if they're worth the hype. We'll get in some of the Test Kitchen's culinary experts to give them a try. All right, let's give it a try. A good shortbread cookie. I like it, but let's see what Bon Appetit has to say.
I think they're pretty great. I think the texture's like spot on. I think they could use more salt, but it's like a really great shortbread. A shortbread is supposed to have a snap, which this does, which is great. It's supposed to have like a short texture, and it's supposed to be very, very tender. Like some crumbling is a good thing.
But I was gonna say, you snap it, but it doesn't come apart. But you snap it. Still very...
Yeah, which is nice.
I think they're worth the hype.
That was delicious.
Yeah,
it really was.
And it's a little original. You get the flowers in there too.
They're so on trend with the flowers, and it's a delicious cookie. I love the butter. I'm gonna finish the whole box.
This is all lovely and all, and validation definitely that Duchess Meghan is that girl and always has been that girl. But again, it just goes to confirm the intense scrutiny that she receives. I mean, when the King came out with his jams, did they do a blind test of his? No, they didn't. And I really don't know any other celebrity that has their products tested to the hilt under a microscope like Meghan's does. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm ignoring the product reviews of the people that are paid to write negatively about Meghan on a daily basis, and I'm more likely to believe those who sampled the products in a blind taste test and those who bought the products in good faith and then posted their reviews. But from the looks of it, As Ever is a winner, and the jam clearly seems to have a unique, interesting taste. Meghan's products were talked widely about, and even her haters waited patiently in the queue online to buy her products. In fact, many of her haters managed to get the orders before her actual fans, and I'm pretty confident that they've never considered buying any of the King's jams or the Duchy products. But me, you will never catch me buying products of someone that I hate with a passion or someone who I'm not impressed by. Hence, I have never bought or will never buy the King's jam. It's never even occurred to me. Definitely not after what he did to Diana, his son, his daughter-in-law, and his Sussex grandchildren. And that was before I read Prince Harry's memoir. If I did, I think that would make me a confused fan. Definitely a follower. Anyway, with Meghan's supporters, those who are curious because of the buzz generated by the marketing, and we can't forget the coins of the confused fans, Meghan may have just created a business which, when scaled up, has the potential to take her to billionaire status in the future. Oh my. 7th to the 9th of April, King Charles and Temu Queen Consort go to Italy. So, King Charles and his Temu Queen Consort travelled to Italy for a state visit, their first time there as King and Queen Consort. Here's Charles being the climate change champion that he is, getting into his royal Bentley that he'd flown in for this 3-day trip. Anyway, unlike Prince William, who is now completing royal tours with a small r, a decision that was made, no doubt, based on the humiliation he no doubt felt over his disastrous trip to the Caribbean in 2022, and how he's probably a little bit jealous of Harry and Meghan seeming more relatable with their less pompous but impactful non-working royal engagements. Well, King Charles and his Temu Queen consort, on the other hand, are not changing a damn thing, and they are clinging on to that R, big R in caps. And, I did a video previously on the purpose of royal tours, so please do check that out on the channel. But this visit had all the glaring hallmarks of that real purpose, that self-serving purpose. Italy is not part of the Commonwealth. They are part of the European Union, which the UK no longer is. So there was no real pressing need for this diplomatic exercise of soft power here. Anyway, Italy and the UK are not fighting. So if you were confused, wondering, pondering, this footage here sums it up why they went. So, to me, this visit was an attempt to impose their royal dominance and to trick Italians into believing that this old dusty deadbeat dad of a man and his peace are important. It's promo for the monarchy, a monarchy that currently has an identity crisis and has been in decline ever since Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan left. As with traditional royal tours, King Charles and Camilla were lauded over. They met presidents, visited historical sites, had children taken out of classes so that they could wave to them. And Charles also spoke in Italian.
Spero di non stare rovinando la lingua di Dante.
Or should I say something that barely resembled Italian? Anyway, on this trip, they also celebrated their 20th anniversary together. Now, this anniversary does not include the years that Charles was cheating with his side-turned-Temu Queen consort on Princess Diana. And one ex-user tweeted this: how it started and how it's going. Ooh, that's deep. Anyway, on the last day, knowing that the Pope, that's the late Pope Francis, was sick, I know that they insisted on stopping by, whether he wanted to see them or not. They had to get their photo op. With all this, you would think that Charles and Temu Queen consort would have scored a front page of newspapers across several newspapers, something that they see as their marker of success as they look at the front pages of the papers every morning over breakfast the next day. But they didn't anticipate that this guy here would stroll back to the UK. Yes, that's Harry, Prince Harry. Prince Harry lands back in the UK. Prince Harry, the Dragon Slayer, would land quietly in the UK and F shit up for his deadbeat dad and his Temu Shein stepmother in several ways. Now, Harry appeared at the Court of Appeal in East Central London for his judicial review hearing on his security.
Well, King Charles and Queen Camilla have just completed their first full day of engagements on their state visit to Italy, but their visit has been overshadowed by Prince Harry's arrival and a London court. The Duke of Sussex is trying to win back the special protections he and his family lost 5 years ago when he and Meghan stepped back from royal duties.
Now, as you heard, Harry flew in to continue his fight for this. And let me say what the royal reporters working for the palace won't say. This is that security that his dad, with the help of his buddies at Ravec, helped to reduce to an inferior basic one despite the higher level of threat against Harry being more so than any other royal, and that being the case because of Charles's own royal reporters, who practically have his consent or even his instructions to write articles inciting hate against him. Now, what was funny about Harry swooping in to attend court is that news pundits were out here doing their job, reading news reports, interviewing experts for the relevant stories of the day, and left, right and centre they were cutting off anyone that they were interviewing mid-sentence whenever there were live developments in Harry's court case.
Often... Guys, so we're just going to stop you there, Rachel, if we can. Prince Harry is leaving the Court of Appeal today. He has been there to dispute the decision to downgrade security arrangements.
Harry well and truly stole the column inches from his deadbeat dad, and some royal sycophant reporters had a little tantrum about it, as expressed in this headline by one of them. What an outrage that Harry's seen stealing should come at the expense of his cancer-stricken father. So, what he is trying to say is that Harry should not seek justice because whatever he does as a spare, non-working royal still has the ability to steal the limelight from a whole king. I'm sorry, but that's not his problem. That sounds like a child's problem to me. Now, this video, the video that you're watching, has been released after the disappointing outcome of the court proceedings. But prior to that, Harry did reveal some revelations or some realizations that he had become privy to in the disclosure process and facts that have emerged to him through the whole court process, which he probably had to keep to himself because of confidentiality. But he did say that the public would be shocked if they knew, like tapping his nose. But you can only imagine what is in there. And Harry did, however, say that his police protection was withdrawn to trap him in the establishment. But of that revelation, I'm thinking, no shit, Sherlock. Harry's been knowing this. And actually, I think that so have most people who are not so easily misled by royal reporters and who don't think that the institution is a happy family rather than a vindictive firm. But like for Harry, I guess when you see that evidence live and direct in writing, all confirmed, it makes it all the more real and not speculative anymore. Now, this security issue is all about control, and I'm definitely going to explore that across a number of videos in due course. But can you remember when Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan were living in that Hobbit house, Knockcott? They were only upgraded to Frogmore Cottage, which is more secure, by the Queen. But they were controlled by aides. They were not allowed to see friends, not allowed to speak up for themselves.
We were in this bubble where everything is controlled by them. Couldn't even text my friends a photo. Yeah. If you can't do this, you can't. Okay. And you do as you're told, but your world just becomes more and more like this.
This is when the royal family had them where they wanted them. They didn't expect a black billionaire to swoop in and not only save the princess, but also save the prince too. Now, that's not how it is usually in fairy tales. I would really want to ask Charles,
are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
Anywho, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan are now free. Free to build their own networks, their own platforms and businesses that will make them financially free. And this now is a bigger threat to the royal family. So the way to get them back in the fold was to cut off their ability to survive, or to try to do that. And security was the starting point. You know what they say? When you play dirty, you never truly win. The royal family and their media goons need to realise this, but they won't stop. 8th of April, Confessions of a Female Founder podcast by Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Another Meghan launch. Now this time it was for Meghan's podcast Confessions of a Female Founder, and her first guest was Whitney Wolfe Herd, the founder of Bumble, the dating app. The podcast was really good. It was really cozy, and it just felt like listening to two ambitious friends having a chat, where they would drop business nuggets, share relatable business moments and also personal moments too. Of course, the British media swooped in to sow their seeds of discord, and the usual coven of Karens on TV found something to get in their feelings about. In the first episode, Whitney and Meghan both shared that they had preeclampsia after pregnancy, which is quite rare and very dangerous to have postpartum. With Meghan's platform, this brought to light a condition that women can suffer from after having a baby, and the revelation was reported widely in the UK.
Now, the Duchess of Sussex has revealed she suffered from what she called a rare and scary illness after the birth of one of her children. It was in the first episode of her new podcast series. Lucy Watson is here. Lucy, what's the podcast all about?
Well, today was episode 1 of what the podcast is called Confessions of a Female Founder. It's a 50-minute chat. The headline grabber from this first episode was that Meghan admitted that she'd suffered with postpartum preeclampsia in the days after giving birth. It's a rare condition, as she says, and it turns out that both of these women, in fact, experienced it after childbirth. Let's just have a quick listen.
And we both had preeclampsia.
Oh, God, can you believe we both had that? It's so rare.
It's so rare.
And so scary.
And so scary. And you go, and you're still trying to juggle all of these things, and the world doesn't know what's happening. But those things are huge medical scares.
I mean, life or death. But preeclampsia is a condition that can cause high blood pressure, protein in the urine, bad headaches, and sometimes more seriously, fitting, organ damage and stroke. There's no indication that Meghan suffered that severely with it, but whenever a celebrity or a royal opens up about a medical condition, it raises awareness, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Lucy, thank you.
And as the presenter said at the end, when a celebrity or a royal opens up about any condition they have, it can only be a good thing. The Preeclampsia charity tweeted their appreciation of Meghan opening up about this, saying, "We're so grateful for the awareness that Meghan Markle, that's Sussex now, is bringing to postpartum preeclampsia, a life-threatening hypertensive disorder of pregnancy. Preeclampsia can occur up to 6 weeks postpartum and can be life-threatening." So, of course, where there's a helpful Meghan revelation, there will always be a Karenified presenter to add their dose of misery to it. The irony is that this British morning show did a whole segment about this. They even got a doctor on to discuss and explain what postpartum preeclampsia is.
Dr. Nigat is downstairs and we can chat to you about this. So what exactly is postpartum preeclampsia?
So as you heard, it is a rare complication. Postpartum...
Then, after all of that, they then had the nerve to turn around and suggest that Meghan shouldn't talk about personal things. It's actually unbelievable. Check this out.
Side, if there's anybody watching now who has this condition, and I think celebrities, and we've seen particularly in issues of emotional health, the two boys, William and Harry, have gained so many yards. Brilliant. So if this helps a woman come to terms with it and she can now turn to her girlfriends or her doctor or her partner, we encourage that. I just think there's a lovely expression which my late mother used to, less is more. And I just think with the Duchess of Sussex, just for a period, and I have no personal animosity towards her, I wish her well, I wish the children nothing but good health. I just think for a period, less is more would be such a welcome change. And I wonder whether many of the public would agree.
OK, let's move on.
You see, this all comes back to the whole, why can't she be private? They don't want Meghan sharing things that connect with women, that make her look relatable and also that humanises her. You would expect them to be sympathetic, not telling her to be silent about this condition that she had. And I don't recall them having an issue when Kate claimed that she had hyperemesis gravidarum, which is an extreme form of morning sickness. This claim, in inverted commas, of Kate's during all 3 of her pregnancies meant that she was able to be absent from royal duties for several months during her pregnancies without question. She herself was on a podcast and mentioned this condition, but she, on the other hand, was never told that talking about it was too much information. That dehumanisation and singling out is just reserved for Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, as always. By the way, keep an eye on the members only section for episode reviews of the podcast and bits and bobs of other stuff. But for the remainder of April, Meghan did also have some incredibly inspiring women grace the podcast. That includes Reshma Saujani, who founded Girls Who Code. Also Katie Lee, who is Meghan's hair colorist.
Hi, Katie. I heard that you have a great podcast that just came out.
Confessions of a Female Founder.
I think that's what it is.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
You're so good in it, Katie.
Yeah, you're amazing.
I hope everyone listens.
Love you.
And there was Jamie Kern-Lehman, founder of IT Cosmetics, who sold her business for $1.2 billion. Woo! Anyway, out the gate, Duchess Meghan's podcast was doing very well. It reached #1 in the business podcast category, and at the end of the month, it still remained in the top 10 in the business category. Onwards and upwards. 10th of April, Harry makes a special and secret Invictus-related visit to the Ukraine. While the other brother was travelling across France for football matches, Prince Harry was travelling to war zones to support veterans and civilians wounded in war. The press and people in general had thought that Harry had left the UK for Montecito after his court hearing regarding his security. But no, he actually travelled to the Ukraine. Whilst in the Ukraine, Harry also met Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Economy, Yulia Sviridenko, and was gifted a basket of Easter cakes made with flour harvested from mined Ukrainian fields. Duchess Meghan actually later posted footage on her Instagram of her little boss lady, Princess Lilibet Diana, sharing out the cake that Harry had brought back home. Now, I don't want to mess with her. But on seeing Meghan's reel, the minister who gifted the cake replied to her with a letter that was posted on the internet and which said, "Your Royal Highness, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for everything that your family is doing for Ukraine and for helping us draw the world's attention to humanitarian demining in Ukraine. Demining will allow millions of displaced Ukrainians to return home and allow thousands of children to go to school without fear. This means so very much to all of us. A remarkable group of women who live in the border region of Sumy, an area affected by landmines, have prepared this Easter bread for you and your family. Today, they, along with all of us, are deeply moved knowing that this symbolic offering, Easter bread, made from flour harvested from demined fields, will be on your table. Thank you from all Ukrainians for your kindness and good-heartedness." I have to say that I think that the connection with Diana, who worked on demining, and Harry taking off where she left makes it so much more special. But of course, the use of HRH to refer to Duchess Meghan had the Karens and the Kevins crashing out. It was almost as if they expected Meghan to Tipex and edit out that bit of that lady's letter just to please the Deranger press, when Meghan is still HRH. She's just agreed not to use it actively. In this case, Meghan was not using the title. It was someone who was referring to her as that. Now, all these details of Prince Harry's trips were released only after he had left the UK.
So the decision to visit a country at war with Russia underlines Prince Harry's commitment to helping injured soldiers.
Morning, Sean. Yeah, with Prince Harry's background, no real surprise that he would want to be involved in a trip like this, which we understand was kept under wraps, really for safety and security reasons. He was invited earlier this year to Ukraine, really through his connections in the Invictus Games, to meet patients and staff and to see the kind of work that they're doing, spend time with them, seeing the prosthetics work, the reconstruction surgery and the rehab that they are doing with injured soldiers. Just a few days, of course, after he was in London for that court hearing about his UK security arrangements, but certainly a trip that would have had no involvement with the palace.
Once upon a time, there's absolutely no way he would have gone to Ukraine without Buckingham Palace knowing, and the UK Foreign Office knowing, and the embassy in Ukraine knowing. But this was organised predominantly through his contacts that he made at the Invictus Games in Vancouver just a few months ago.
A number of royals, of course, have been very public with their support for Ukraine, not least the King. Harry's dad, just earlier this month, welcomed President Zelensky to Sandringham. And on top of that, the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, visited the country last year. But Sean, Prince Harry's trip over the last 24 hours, very much a solo effort with no involvement, no planning from the palace.
I have so many questions about this news clipping. Like, why is the news pundit standing outside Buckingham Palace? Harry's not working royal anymore. He don't live there. You need to be standing outside Montecito Palace. Why would Harry tell the Foreign Office that he's going to Ukraine or Buckingham Palace, who are instrumental in stopping him from having security?
Why?
Of course, they will probably leak his location whilst he was in the Ukraine, just like I suspect they did when Harry and Meghan's security was stopped with very little warning whilst they were in Canada after leaving the dusty monarchy and thinking of making Canada their home. Then, having to secretly find safety in LA with the help of Tyler Perry, we haven't forgotten that. These weirdos in the UK just want to jump on Prince Harry's clout and desperately connect the fantastic work that he does to the Dusty Royals when it suits them. And on every other day, use the British media to try and destroy him. But I do think that the UK Foreign Office tried to play smart when the Telegraph reported that the Foreign Office wouldn't comment on if they had knowledge of the trip in advance. If the Foreign Office knew, then Harry's family would know. And like I said before, that would have jeopardised the whole thing. They knew nothing, and it pains them. They just wanted to make it seem like they did. And while it pains them that Harry is doing his credible and meaningful service that is universal, where he didn't have to dress up, the media had to find a ridiculous angle to criticise him. So they suggested that Harry can't be serious about security if he's fighting for it in the UK, but then apparently putting himself in danger going to a war zone in Ukraine. Well, obviously, he went secretly.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
And they know that he has been given the kind of security there that the UK, his home country, won't give him. Deep down, they're annoyed that that makes them look bad. Now, one person who was not happy about Prince Harry's trip to the Ukraine was definitely football boy Prince William. So, reflecting William's annoyance, this headline reads, "Why Prince Harry's surprise war zone trip frustrated Prince William and had him fuming at palace officials." So the premise of the article is that Prince William wanted to go to the Ukraine, but that he was told no. Oh, diddums. Seriously, I guarantee you that this lazy man-child did not want to go to a war zone. I'm sure that he probably would have been afraid of breaking a nail or something like that. However, remember in the March roundup that he did, however, go to Estonia. And he got to dress up in military wear, cosplaying a soldier, and even play in a tank in a very safe zone, whereas Harry's visit was the opposite. Now, I believe the headline for that outing of Prince William's was about him sending a strong message from the tank near the Russian border. But Harry's visit against William's really does show how it's William who's the toy soldier out of the two of them. And I can just imagine William sending his strong message there too. I bet he would use this tactic just to scare the Russians.
Ooh. You know what's coming out first? The snake. The snake is coming out first.
Oh, how hard. Putin and the Russians must be real scared. Yep. They're quaking in their boots that this man right here was in a tank getting his photo op. Look, Prince William should just stick to football. 10th of April, Meghan goes on a girls' night to New York to watch Gypsy on Broadway. So, whilst Prince Harry was attending to business in the UK and Ukraine, Duchess Meghan made a quick trip to New York with her neighbour and pal Tracy Robbins to watch Gypsy on Broadway. Now, this was a very heartwarming and full circle trip, as the star of the show, Audra McDonald, got to meet Meghan for the first time after years of supporting her. You see, in 2019, when Duchess Meghan was pregnant with Archie, Audra took to Instagram posting a picture of when she was pregnant, and she wrote the following message. Me at 8 months pregnant. The reason I'm posting this is because of Meghan Markle. I cannot believe what this woman has had to endure from social media and the press. Then today, to read about how, in quotes, weird her body language is by a supposed women's magazine that supposedly prides itself on celebrating fierce, independent, strong women who can do anything and have it all? Do better. When I was 8 months pregnant, I touched my belly all the time because it was my belly and it was my baby, usually as active as this video, inside, had crazy emotions raging from elation to depression to rage to uncontrollable fits of laughter. I was a swollen, hot, sweaty, enormous, flatulent, in search of my feet, hot fudge sundae junkie, nervously excited, pudgy-faced, waddling goddess. The thought of having to go through all of that, plus having a million cameras in my face, bullied left, right and centre, and still be gracious, elegant, gorgeous, and full of purpose in front of the whole world is unimaginable. Do better. Leave her alone. Now, in an appearance on the Today Show around that time, way back when, Audra explained her Instagram post.
You actually wrote an interesting post on Instagram and grabbed a lot of attention because you were defending Meghan Markle. You said, listen, this woman, everybody's attacking her. Yeah. She's pregnant. She has to stay gracious.
Yes.
Why did you decide to go there?
Because I remember what I felt like at 8 months pregnant. When I was in the post, I was saying, I'm hot, I'm sweaty, I'm swollen, I'm flatulent. All I want are hot fudge sundaes. And the thought of having to do all that and yet remain gracious and gorgeous and still out there working and being, hounded and bullied and 500 million cameras flashing in your face at all moments. And the reason I wrote the post is because there was a magazine who said that some of her body language was weird. Of course it's...
You've got a body growing inside you.
You've got a body growing inside of you. And so I just felt like, someone needs to cut this girl a break, And I said, leave her alone. So maybe it's because I have a biracial daughter as well. And so there's something about Meghan Markle, for some reason, I feel oddly protective of her.
Do you feel like part of the criticism that's aimed at her is rooted in some of that?
Yes, I would say so.
On top of this, Audra was asked in an interview which living person she most admired. And you guessed it, it was Meghan. So Meghan has actually an army of fans who fiercely support her for many reasons. But one of the main reasons is that it has been clearly obvious what Meghan has had to endure from joining that dusty family and doing the job better than every one of them. She endured the trolling, the bullying, the defamation of her character to prop up what some would say is a lazy, talentless, mediocre white family. So Meghan this time round getting to support Audra in her show just felt like that full circle moment I mentioned. And this hug right here, look at it, you can feel it. And I know both of them understood what it was. Meghan also got to chat to the cast backstage, and you can just see how delighted everyone was to see her there. She then later posted of her trip afterwards and no doubt used her Meghan effect power to encourage people to go out and watch the show. So she said, if you get a chance to see Gypsy Broadway, you absolutely must. Congratulations to the tremendously talented cast and crew for creating magic on that stage. And meeting Audra McDonald for the first time last night, and then she's got a tearful face. Her performance will leave you absolutely speechless, full body chills. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house, and if the theatre didn't have to close for the night, the standing ovation would still be happening. Wow, what a beautiful message that was. Meghan's got such a way with words, and what a beautiful meeting too. 23rd of April, Meghan takes New York times 100. So, not long after the Broadway show visit, Meghan was back in New York where she was a keynote panelist for the Times 100 Summit. She rocked up with Harry in a tan suit looking ready for business. And unlike Kate's Baker Boy hat fail, Meghan's tan Ralph Lauren suit did what it normally does when she wears something. It sold out. Woo, get your money, girl. Now, not only was she rocking a beautiful suit, but she was also rocking a beautiful tan. She was glowing. And since there was a report around that time that they had had a family get-together or getaway, I suspect that this was just after it. And I love that she and Prince Harry get a chance to go away with the kids and just enjoy life, then get back to business without the men in grey suits all up in the business. Not that anymore. Not since 2020. Now, watching Meghan being interviewed by Jess Sidley was just a clear look into how the royal family truly fumbled the bag. Because Meghan, as usual, was engaging, articulate and confident, no mumbling here or needing pre-prepared questions, just an off-the-cuff chat. With Meghan doing an interview like this, she was effortlessly also shutting down narratives and making her confused fans / derangers look stupid. She talked of her partnership with Netflix, which of course is very strong. I mean, they're in business together, so haters trying to spin it otherwise is a bit ridiculous. She talked about why she didn't film in her kitchen. And of course, she talked about her viral sensation, those flour sprinkles.
And she said flour sprinkles. Oh my gosh. Talk about flour sprinkles.
You would think it's like a little fairy if I could just be tossing them around all the time. The obsession that has come with flour sprinkles,
Explain
I was
to
not
this
expecting.
audience who might not have watched the show yet about flour sprinkles.
So I just... Of all things to be talking about for Time 100. Let's talk about flour sprinkles. Because I think it speaks to the tiny moments of joy that are so effortless and just create a little bit of magic that we're all craving in our everyday. They're tiny little flower petals that are dried. I started putting them on salads. I started putting them on scrambled eggs. It didn't actually matter. On a yogurt parfait. The level of charm that you find people have when they see these tiny little dried petals is something I can't fully wrap my head around, but I appreciate that there is a love for the detail and the small level of delight that can be added. So take flour sprinkles really as an analogy and think about what you could do in your everyday life that can just have a little splash of magic on unexpected moments.
One of the highlights was when Meghan was asked to give one confession as a female founder, and she said this.
I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And that part, to have a partner and a husband who is just so supportive and to have healthy kids that are so joyful in the freeness of their life and the safety of their life that we create for them, of all the things that have happened in my life, I never would have imagined getting here at this point. I would feel just so happy and grateful, and I really do.
Woo! You know there was gnashing of yellow teeth on Salty Island when she said that here. Like this one here.
It did seem to me very much off message and entirely, as usual, focused on her and what she was doing. And she professes to be extremely happy. Well, I'm delighted to hear that, because I'm not sure how happy she's made other people. Certainly over the last few years, when she's sent out all sorts of very unpleasant messages which have upset certainly many people in the British royal family and over here. And so to use an occasion like that to, one, promote your own Netflix show, and two, to profess that all is well in the world and that you're happy and your children are happy and everybody else is happy, does seem to me, to some extent, rather inappropriate.
So, let's just get this straight. So because Meghan, who was mercilessly bullied by the media at the behest of the royal family, so we think, explained why she and Harry had to leave that dusty institution, an explanation that she shared in 2021 with Oprah, it's inappropriate in this 2025 to talk about how happy she now is several years later. She's not allowed to talk about herself and promote her business in a space that she has been given to do exactly that. She's not allowed to talk about her journey. Oh God, this Hugo royal correspondent, or whatever he titles himself, is literally diabolical. 24th of April, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan stay in New York for the Lost Screen Memorial. Whilst in New York, the Duke and Duchess unveiled the Lost Screen Memorial. What was this? Well, it's part of their foundation's No Child Lost to Social Media campaign, specifically led through the Archewell Foundation's Parents Network. Now, the memorial is a powerful call to action for urgent online safety reform for children. Now, this is something that both Harry and Meghan have been passionate about for some time. And at the site, they stood in solidarity with nearly 50 families whose children have been lost to online harm and who were commemorated. And I think that this was a really special event because many of these families have been working very closely with Harry and Meghan for several years now. The installation featured 50 illuminated light boxes designed to resemble smartphones, with each displaying locked screen photos of the child whose life was lost by the digital dangers that there are out there. The memorial is also a poignant extension of Prince Harry's remarks at the 2024 Clinton Global Initiative in September 2024, where he gave a speech and called for immediate action to protect children online. And in his speech, he also shared that his own lock screen featured a photo of his children, which is a reminder of what is at stake for families everywhere. Truly, this is another project where Prince Harry and Meghan are showing up and doing good, because through this initiative, which I think really feels like a community, their foundation continues to provide resources and support for families trying to navigate the complex challenges of parenting in a digital world. And you can also feel Prince Harry and Meghan's passion and the strength of their empathy with this audio interview that they did and gave for the BBC.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex met with a group of families last night who believe social media played a part in the deaths of their children. This was Harry and Meghan speaking exclusively to John Kay from BBC Breakfast. The exchanges were conducted off camera, but this is the audio which starts with Meghan talking about the stories she'd heard from various families.
These are families that we have been working with for several years, and the families from the UK, meeting them tonight, I think sort of speaks to the larger global issue that has been very present on all of our minds for years now, which is no matter how polarized the world is or what people may or may not agree on, one thing that we can all agree on is that our children should be safe. All of our children should be safe. And I think tonight all of these stories solidify that.
Life is better off of social media. I say that as a parent. And I say that as someone who's spoken to many of the kids here tonight who aren't on social media because they've lost a brother or a sister to social media. But clearly enough is not being done.
Yeah, so very eloquently said there. And by the way, I do think it was quite bold of the BBC to interview Harry and Meghan, because While William might be delulu thinking that Africa is his, he may not be quite so delulu when it comes to the BBC. It's complicated, but sometimes the BBC kowtows to the royals, and there will surely have been some raised royal eyebrows at the sight of Harry and Meghan being interviewed like this, like they were working royals. Personally, I think that the fact it was an audio interview was perhaps a compromise by the BBC, because forget about raised eyebrows, a visual interview with Prince Harry and Meghan, all eloquent, showing up the mediocre royals on the BBC, could have led to the kind of raised blood pressure for a royal like William that ended up in hospitalisation. That would be the disease of being incandescent with rage. 24th April, Meghan gifts TV presenter Alex Berriford her jam. With all the people receiving Meghan's gifted jam, the one that caught everyone's attention was when Alex Berriford posted a screenshot of the jam in Meghan's keepsake packaging and a note in her fancy handwriting. Meghan also gifted Alex a cuddly toy for his new baby girl, Camille. And boy, did she deliver that in style. Now, if you remember, Alex was one of the only people on Good Morning Britain, a major morning TV show in the UK, that stood up for Meghan.
You don't like Meghan Markle. You've made it so clear a number of times on this programme, a number of times. And I understand that you've got a personal relationship with Meghan Markle, or had one, and she cut you off. She's entitled to cut you off if she wants to. Has she said anything about you since she cut you off? I don't think she has, but yet you continue to trash her.
And it was Alex telling Piers Morgan about himself and his obsession with Meghan that led to Piers walking off the show like the big man baby that he really is, never to return.
OK, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, no. Sorry.
So, do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can trash me, maybe not my
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry, can't do this.
Now, the papers have been trying to play this off as Meghan trying to reignite a feud with Piers, which really doesn't make sense because Meghan has never mentioned that man's name once. While Meghan is out here tending to her fish pond full of koi carp, picking berries with her kids and spending her time with her husband. Now, I love that Meghan is at a place of joy and is giving back to the people who bravely supported her when they themselves were up against a powerful media that could have negatively affected them too. Now, it was also discovered later on that Meghan was using Alex's wife's luxury delivery company, Coolfords, to deliver her gifted jam to people in the UK. And Big Mouth Piers wasn't so mouthy in his reaction to all of this. He made a comment pretending that he was not bothered, and despite how his fellow presenters on that morning show also abused Meghan, but more sedately, love having her name in their mouths too, they said and asked nothing about Meghan's gift when Alex turned up for work the very next day. I think they realised that they really are dead to Meghan. She don't know who you are, and they're hating from outside the club. 25th of April, Prince Harry presents a Living Legend of Aviation Award. Now, with this year's awards, there wasn't the fanfare, noise, news articles and discussions around this event this time because this year, the living legend of aviation himself, Prince Harry, was presenting an award instead of being honoured with one. But what is nice to see is that he really is now part of the community and he's part of the committee that chooses who should be honoured. This year, the honour went to the firefighters and the first responders who worked day and night to put out the LA fires.
There are moments in life that reveal a great deal about who we are, not just as individuals, but as a people. Moments that test our courage and passion and our commitment to one another. And time again, what I've seen, and what the world sees, is that first responders rise to that challenge every single time. And yet we rarely get the chance to thank them. This community, bound and energized by service to others, shows up for us wherever we are and whenever they're needed. They put their lives on hold for as long as we need them. Those who are duty-bound to answer the call once they've chosen to wear the uniform. This past January, when fires swept through the 50 square miles of Los Angeles County, threatening homes, businesses, communities, we saw that spirit in action. We saw courage, we saw commitment, and we saw an extraordinary group of men and women take to the skies, risking their lives to protect people they would never meet. Tonight, we thank and honour members of our community, especially aerial firefighters and the supporting ground teams. The pilots, crews and support teams who met disaster with discipline, with determination, and decisive drops of gallons of water and fire retardant to turn chaos into coordination.
Harry is well and truly part of the living legend community, and his speech truly showed that. 26th of April, Prince William attends Pope Francis's funeral. Now, when the Pope died on Easter Monday, a few short hours after meeting J.D. Vance, may I say, R.I.P., there was chatter about who from the royal family would attend when the funeral took place on the coming Saturday. Now, all the royal pundits were banging on about Prince William and confirmed that he would attend in his role as being a global statesman. These people are so funny. Has that man completed his life's work to bring peace to the Middle East yet or nah? Because we're still waiting. Look, Prince William wants to be seen as a global statesman without actually doing the work. But anyway, the Pope's funeral is not something that he actually wanted to go to, apparently. You can hardly get this man near a church, probably afraid of the walls crumbling in his presence. Yet, he is being sent to the biggest church service ever. These are the types of events that Prince Harry probably would have been sent to instead. That man has been sent so many places in his time as a working royal, and that's really because I suspect that the others just didn't want to do those kind of things. In fact, I think that that's one of the reasons why they were so angry that he hot-footed it out of that dusty island. But in a column in the Daily Fell, the writer alludes to this, and he says, Prince William, packing his black tie for Pope Francis's committal, should have attended his first state funeral in January, that of President Jimmy Carter. But my sources whisper that the heir to the throne wasn't keen on going. The king mobilised Prince Edward instead, leaving William at home on what happened, totally coincidentally, to be Kate's birthday. It seems he was equally reluctant to obey the order to go to Rome on Saturday until his father pulled rank. Surely it has nothing to do with his beloved Aston Villa playing Crystal Palace in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley. Now, if he was able to go to the Aston Villa match, he probably would have, and probably would have had better seats, because he was given what they call the cheap seats at the funeral. And I think some of those journos who really can't stand him deep down but pretend not to, use the opportunity to get a dig in with some of their headlines flagging this. Despite this man's shortcoming, of which there are many, the papers in their bid to polish a turd wrote this hilarious headline. Here we go. William the Peacemaker, the secret role Prince William played before extraordinary Pope funeral talks between Trump and Zelensky to end Ukraine war. I mean, without reading the article, I know Willie in the cheap seats did nothing, because Willie has no commanding presence. Let's be serious here. But on reading the article, it was actually really funny to find out what this supposed big moment was. Wait for it. It was reading the room and moving out the way so that Trump and Zelensky could talk. I mean, the stretch is something else. Basically, his big moment was moving out of the way. And that's because he just can't add anything to the conversation. There was one user on social media, Queens Are Made, that said this, and I think it hits the spot perfectly. So it says, apparently a statesman, according to British media, is a man who is ignored by other world leaders and left out of discussions and decisions pertaining to the world. To them, that makes him a peacemaker. Oh dear. Honestly, I don't even believe he was chatting to Trump and Zelensky. There certainly isn't a picture, and if there isn't a picture, it didn't happen. But if there was, the papers who are trying to force the public to see Willie as a global statesman would have had that splashed all over the front pages. I guess they're still mad that Prince Harry was in the Ukraine. They also dropped this headline. Prince William prays for composure at Pope Francis' funeral held as perfect king moment. Oh God. Did they think that he would be slouched in a chair like a bored teenager? Or getting into the pegging position ready for Jason North or Rose, or both? Or start dropping it like it's hot? I mean, I just can't with these people. The bar is set so low for those working royals. Anyway, one last thing on this topic, but there was a lot of raised eyebrows about it being inappropriate that instead of turning up in a black suit, Trump turned up in a blue suit. But it was totally ignored that so did William. He turned up in a blue suit too. Personally, I think that this is just one indication of many of how alike they are. William probably has more in common with Trump than he has with Harry. 26th of April, Virginia Giuffre's death is announced. Sad news now as Virginia Giuffre, the brave woman that spoke up about being essayed by Prince Andrew when she was a teenager, dies by suicide, her family disclosed. Now, most people who can see through the smoke and mirrors of the royal family have an understanding of just how dark and sinister they are and how they would easily put their own in harm's way if that person threatened their popularity. See Harry for notes. So immediately on news of her death, most people felt this wasn't a suicide. Just like most people don't think that Diana's death was a genuine, untampered with car accident. In respect of Virginia, this is suspected, especially as she, in 2019, did say that she was not suicidal. And also, if you remember, Diana also felt that they were planning an accident in her car so Charles could marry Camilla. Now, I do think that there was a chance that Virginia's death was a suicide because there were other issues at play now, like her marriage was in trouble, apparently. I think that if so, that still stemmed from the trauma of what had been done to her by Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew and probably other men. And I guess it was just too much for her to bear and it crept into other areas of her life. But these immediate thoughts people were having only just highlights that the royal family is not a safe space for women. We've seen the media and trolls rejoice when the king took back Frogmore Cottage from Harry and Meghan, which was their only safe haven in the UK given to them by the Queen, meaning that his granddaughter and his grandson can't visit their dad's country, their home country. Now, we've also heard of the anger that this man, the king, feels because his son is fighting in the courts to secure adequate security, not just for himself, but mainly for his wife and kids to come to the UK, where people are currently in prison over threats to harm Meghan and Archie. We have seen the so-called domestic abuse survivor advocate, Camilla, throw a party to highlight a domestic abuse charity, yet how she was silent when her mates used violent rhetoric to put Meghan in harm's way or to encourage the bullying of this woman. And that this ultimately all raises the threat and incites hate against her. We have seen how Diana was used to make babies for the institution, then gaslit by that same institution, smeared by that institution as being mentally unstable, and then how her own son William low-key endorsed that she was mentally unstable through paranoia, which I think if she did have, she was right to have. And that was done again for the sake of the institution, and how he silenced her from the grave by making sure that her interview speaking out on the pain that that institution caused her should be banned from being aired again. Let me hand over the mic to this lady who makes some great points in how the royal family are not advocates or figureheads that protect women.
This is not the first death of a woman where the royal family have been implicated in one way or another, is it? And I say this as a professional that's working in the violence against women and girls space. Why are violence against women and girls organisations cozying up to the royal family? Why are you going to events at the royal family? Why are you going to meet Queen Camilla, who's like, oh, she's campaigning against violence against women and girls? Shut the front door. No, she is not. Why are you getting sucked in? How can you be that naive? Grow a fucking backbone and stop engaging with them. Boycott them. The royal family are not a safe place for women. They never have been. They still aren't. The royal family literally funded Prince Andrew's out-of-court settlement for Virginia Giuffre, who he trafficked, right? Who is now dead. Diana died in a car crash. We know full fucking well that both of her sons have questioned that death. We know the background of that. We know that the royal family was spreading rumours that she was mentally ill. She gave a speech about it, saying that, according to the press, I'm going to be hauled off by men in white coats very soon. Shortly after, died. She knew the palace was spreading those rumours who was fucking her husband? Camilla. I'm sorry, but how can you believe that the royal family cares about women? What about Meghan Markle? Meghan and Harry have had to leave the country because of what they were doing to Meghan. They've left the country and the royal family. You're not seeing a pattern develop here. I cannot get my head around how domestic abuse organisations, sexual abuse organisations, Vogue organisations in the UK are going to these events with the royal family and lapping it up and posting pictures with Camilla and being like, that the Queen cares about abuse. Do they fork? Grow up. I can't. Just boycott them and have some integrity for women.
And when it came to Virginia sharing her story, the royal family did everything to silence her too. On top of this, we know that the royal family paid her upwards of £12 million, could be way more, we don't know, just so that Prince Andrew wouldn't face justice. It's just so sad that the royal family always get away with their crimes because they've got a great PR team and a great PR machinery. But Virginia has left a legacy. She spoke up despite the forces against her trying to protect a powerful institution. 28th of April, Meghan is a podcast guest. Jamie Kern Lima was the last guest on Meghan's podcast to close out the month of April. And let me tell you, she was so inspiring with her rags to riches story of building IT Cosmetics, a makeup business that started because she was trying to find a solution to makeup that worked to cover up her rosacea, a skin condition that makes her cheeks red. Now, if you haven't already, you really need to check out this podcast, and I will be doing a review of it for the members only section of the channel when I get through the reviews of the previous episodes. But what I want to focus on here is that a day before Meghan's podcast dropped, out of nowhere, Jamie Kern Lima dropped her own visual podcast featuring none other than Duchess Meghan Sussex. There was no pre-announcement, it just dropped. A whole hour and a half of a podcast. And I must say that Meghan supporters would have felt like it was Christmas at this time, because it was the first time that Meghan has been featured on a podcast. And boy, it was such an enlightening conversation. I think that it was one that showed people the kind-natured person that she is. And as usual, when Meghan gets a platform to not be private or not be quiet, narratives are dispelled and dismantled all over the place. So it is with great sadness that I confirm that the Derangers' worst fears were indeed confirmed by this podcast. One main one was that Prince Harry is not on the cusp of divorcing Meghan.
You know, I mean, that man loves me so much.
She is very happy. They are very happy. And I was tempted to make a Freedom of Information request to see if hospitalisations of mainly white unhappy Karens went up that day. There was also that she doesn't read the deranged social media posts. So I guess that they are shouting into the void. Basically, the mixed heritage princess is winning at life. As per usual, some negativity needed to be injected into the discourse around the podcast, and so the Karens that managed to avoid hospitalisation found something to blow up and make into a big deal. So this revolved around Meghan saying that she likes to send emails to her children, well, to an email address that she will give to her children, and so they can look at this later on. So it's basically an online scrapbook. I saw many people online acknowledge that this was a cute idea. Others thought it was not something that they would be able to keep up with, and I get that. But Meghan seems to me to be a sentimentalist, and I just know that girl is super organised. People that can commit to writing a journal every day normally are. Also, of course, we're not party to all that she endured as a working royal. From the information that we do have, that is in the public domain, it's clear that she is a mum who is up against a powerful institution and its network that are trying to destroy her, like they successfully did to Harry's mum, Princess Diana. So just as Meghan said, there are so many photos that you can take on your phone every day that just build up and you don't store it anywhere. And this is her way to ensure that they are all kept in a kind of online treasure trove full of memories that the family could look at together or separately, which show how the kids were loved by her and Harry as they were growing up. Even though some of the haters suggested that the children would be overloaded with thousands of photos and that they would almost find it offensive, obviously they wouldn't. And obviously they'd be under no contract to view a certain amount per day, but it would be just nice for them to be able to access it whenever they want. I think it's really sweet. Also, during the interview, Jamie showed a gift basket that Meghan had sent to her when she was feeling down one time. And it had a note which had printed on it Meghan's name with her Duchess title, but also with her HRH title. Those Karens were up in arms about this. And stories galore were being written by the press about how Meghan was breaking the agreement to the Queen of not using her HRH title. I mean, it was reported on like it was a crime. Check out this clip here.
The Duchess of Sussex has denied wrongly using her former HRH title after becoming embroiled in fresh controversy. Meghan and Harry agreed with Buckingham Palace to stop using the titles when they stepped down from royal duties. But a monogrammed card with the words HRH, the Duchess of Sussex, has been spotted in a recent podcast interview that Meghan did. Well, Ellie Pitt is here with more on this.
This is a real clip, by the way. A whole segment on whether the royal woman of colour is allowed to use the title.
But wait! There's more! It's causing a right row, isn't it? Why?
Because, Mary, I think at the heart of this is a question about what was agreed between the late Queen and Harry and Meghan when they decided to leave their lives in the UK as working royals and move to California in America under what became known as Megxit. So this has all come about because Meghan was on a podcast with her friend and makeup brand boss, Jamie Kern-Lima, in which the pair were discussing a gift basket that Meghan had sent Jamie when she was going through a difficult time in her life. This is what was said.
All of a sudden, I get word that, you dropped off this gift basket with ice creams, homemade strawberry sauce to put on top of the ice cream, just to see if that helps lighten my load.
So it was that picture with the card that had HRH, Her Royal Highness, written on it that's caused this controversy, because at the time when they decided to leave, Prince Harry and Meghan, a statement from Buckingham Palace said, the Sussexes will not use their HRH titles as they are no longer working members of the royal family. And that was to take place from spring 2020. But sources close to Meghan have told us that the agreement was they would retain their HRH titles but not use them for commercial purposes, and that this gift basket with the jam and ice creams was a personal gift. And Jamie said that it was from more than a year ago. The question perhaps, though, is after reading that what appears to be categorical statement from Buckingham Palace at the time, should she be using the HRH title at all? Okay.
The real question is, why would people care? How does this affect their lives? And a whole new segment? This story is akin to me making the very confusing decision on whether to order a chai latte or a tiramisu ice whip latte. These are what they call first world problems, non-issues. Let's just forget about the real issues in the world, like the genocide happening in places like Gaza and the Congo, and the orange man in the White House effing up the world's economy with his tariffs. There's also a war in Ukraine and other places too. But no, it's the royal lady of colour using a title in private that is paining you. And it's interesting that they say that sources close to Meghan responded to this non-story. I do not believe that for 1 minute. This is a non-story pushed by angered Karens in the news offices, who I would just let sit in their anger and definitely not respond to. Meghan using her HRH in private is none of anyone's business, but because, as is the key word, it was in private. And if the palace and their deranged followers are so pressed by this, then take the damn HRH titles back. Otherwise, I believe that Meghan will be thinking,
who gonna check me, boo?
Meghan has recently got a new communications team as well. And if this was a big issue for them, they would have put out a statement with a named source and not sources that have been manufactured up by these diabolical Karens. Anyway, here's more Karens thinking that they got one up on Meghan. You know, the gotcha that they always love to think they have.
There was no fine print around the use of HRH for commercial or non-commercial purposes. It was very simple. They will no longer use their HRHs. Mm-hmm. It was very clear.
Pretty clear.
Now, if there is one thing that you can rely on, it's for royal reporters to twist the truth when it comes to Meghan or Harry. Actually, the agreement did not say they could never use the title. It was very clear that they retained the title, but they were not supposed to use it actively. And that included not using it for commercial purposes. And that is something that Meghan hasn't done. For this occasion, she used it as a personal gift, and that was quite discreet. It wasn't a public thing, other than Jamie Kern-Lima decided to show it. Also, a point which has been made, but hasn't really been picked up, is that actually the agreement, which came from the Sandringham Agreement, was actually broken by the monarchy and therefore voided by the monarchy when they changed their position on providing the Sussexes with security for a year for their transition year once they left the working team in 2020. I think they broke it about 6 weeks afterwards. And of course, the royal reporters would not mention that. And of course, the royal family would feel that they can break their end of an agreement, but yet expect the Sussexes to continue to abide by terms of that voided agreement. It's damn cheeky. So as far as I'm concerned, the Sussexes have been very gracious in not using their HRH quite openly. So next. In fact, from now on, I might just be referring to Meghan as HRH or Her Royal Highness. I don't know. It sounds kind of nice. I don't have a signed agreement with anybody, so I can call her that if I want. And I think it's very fitting. Now, I can't end this section without mentioning how good does Meghan and Jamie Kern-Lima look without makeup. Real good. And this is what happens when you drink water, mind your business, and you're a good person. Being kind helps you stay youthful. Some people should take note. William and Kate celebrate their business anniversary. Co-workers William and Kate spent the 14th year of their business marriage on the Isle of Mull in Scotland. In their efforts to emulate the naturally affectionate Prince Harry and Meghan, they really did ham up their PDA. And this business PDA, being something they've discovered after 20 years plus of being together, I think ended up looking quite unnaturally affectionate. And it did seem as if they, or more so Kate, was very aware of the cameras, and with this ringing in her ears,
"That man loves me so much."
I believe Kate really hoped it would look like her man loved her too. But on this occasion, Sophie would be right in saying that the choreography was off, and that strategic placing of the hand on the lower back of William all the time looked to me a bit staged as hell for the photographers to get the shot. But I don't know, wanting to keep the creepy single white female copying vibe, or maybe that in couple form this time, William and Kate seem to want to recreate one of Prince Harry and Meghan's iconic couple shots looking out on the horizon. Especially as Kate has suddenly discovered nature. But this was picked up on social media, as you can see. Pictures are very, very similar. Yes, what Harry and Meghan do, Kate and William have to copy. But still, I'm still getting colleague vibes who are good friends to me. I don't know what you think. April was yet another month that was packed with royal stories, and I just couldn't fit it all in. So here's a quick rundown of the things that didn't make the cut. Quick. The monarchy is dying. What should we do to revive interest? I know. Let's play a carrot. Yes. Another pointless royal reception which took place on the 3rd of April. King Charles played a carrot. So, don't be surprised to see King Charles twerking in the month of June to distract from the dull and lifeless royal balcony when the Trooping of the Colours takes place. And also, did you know that another royal was in New York a week before Meghan's Times 100 panel talk? Of course you knew, because this is a royal, Prince Edward, who has a HRH title that is actively in use. Which means that he must be incredibly important and incredibly popular, because having a title is a marker of success and popularity, apparently. Anyway, apparently this ball was in New York, a state in a non-Commonwealth country, in order to promote the UK project, the Duke of Edinburgh Award, at a school in the US. So the royals are clearly spreading their tentacles to get into popular territories, especially those which have a strong Sussex presence. Also, Kate and William were packed on a secret holiday in France skiing. Looks like Kate, who can exert herself on the ski slopes, is fully recovered from the cancer that she said had been found present, we don't know where. Kate also released a nature video promoting the Scouts, wearing a hat that, by the way, still remains fully stocked in the shops. I think the public are supposed to care that she likes hugging the trees, but it's not working.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Now, I watched a snippet of her video, so you have to too. Sorry.
I find it a very spiritual and very intense, emotional reconnection, I suppose, these environments. Not everyone has that same relationship, perhaps, with nature, but it is so, therefore, meaningful for me as a place to balance and find a sort of sense of peace and reconnection in what is otherwise a very busy world.
Okay, that's enough. I'm not going to torture you anymore. But then also, King Charles, who is instrumental in preventing his beloved son, Prince Harry, and his family from having security, released an Easter message about love and forgiveness, the very virtues that he doesn't practice. Here's a snippet of the King's Easter message.
The king wrote, "One of the puzzles of our humanity is how we're capable of both great cruelty and great kindness. This paradox of human life runs through the Easter story and in the scenes that daily come before our eyes." He added, "There are three virtues that the world still needs: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love."
Yet Kate and William skipped the Easter service in order to spend another mini break with Carol Middleton. Or maybe they're just scared that the church is going to crumble if they walk in. And finally, to lighten up the month, Meghan released this cute video of a family of ducks crossing the road. Now, this video went viral, currently at 9.1 million views on her Instagram. And of course, it was the same old story of the Derangers and the Deranger press being upset about it and saying it can't be real. And I'm sure that one of them would have interviewed the mother duck to check that they weren't bullied to get into formation. Anyway, that is the end of the very long April roundup. I do hope you liked it, and if you did, please do click the like button. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section, which I do go through, and hit the notification bell so that you know when the next video is out. Also, if you're a member, don't forget to check out the members only section, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. As ever, Duchess Royale, peace, and I'm out.